What's going on, everybody? RDAP Dan, Federal Prison Time Consulting. Happy Saturday. Give everybody a few minutes to join us as usual. And we'll be taking some live questions here if you have any. And we're going to be talking today about getting ready to go to federal prison. Your first day, your first week, your first hour, things you should be focusing on, and things that are probably keeping you up at night. So until we get started, everybody chime in where they're from, where you're watching from. And if you haven't done so, this would be a great time to go ahead and subscribe to the channel, give a like, a share, subscribe, a thumbs up, all that fun stuff. And you can actually post your comments in this live chat. And if you happen to watch this on the replay, you can just drop a comment and we'll try to get back to some of your answers. Because I imagine many of you are probably not sleeping too well as you get ready to go to federal prison. Cheers. Fucking Super Bowl tomorrow. Nobody cares. Who's everybody got? I imagine not many people are going for KC unless you're a KC fan, as you can see. I'm a Bills fan, so I'm still bitter. Bitter Dan. What's going on, Chris? Chris, longtime viewer, hanging out in the room. Welcome, welcome. It's 3:30 on the West Coast, and we got a shit ton of snow. A lot of snow. All right, so let's kind of dive into this and kind of get you guys. I've got some notes over here to try to stay on track so I don't veer off too bad here. I think the biggest question a lot of people have, if you're under federal indictment, if you have a target letter, maybe you've already taken your plea deal, you've already been sentenced, not sure where you are in the whole phase of the situation. But for me, for those of you that don't know, I went through the system myself. I got indicted in 2000. Well, I got in trouble in 2011. Didn't officially get indicted until 2013. But ultimately, I was sentenced to 42 months federal prison. I served my time in Coleman Federal Prison in Central Florida, over near Ocala, at a low security. Didn't make it to a camp due to a detainer that I had on my case. However, I ended up shortening my sentence. I served about 13 months out of my 42 months in prison, 11 months halfway house, a few months home confinement, 36 months of supervised release, which I cut that in half. But we'll kind of talk about that. If you do have questions about what you can be doing right now to better your situation, maybe you're trying to qualify for RDAP, you're trying to find out what you can do to reduce your sentence, how to get the best possible outcome at sentencing, there is a link in the description of the video to go ahead and book yourself a free consultation. But let's talk about getting ready to go to federal prison. Hey, Larry, how are you? We got Larry in the room. Welcome, welcome. Getting ready to go to federal prison, I would say probably for many of you, including myself, probably the worst part of everything is what you're dealing with right now. Sleepless nights, anxiety, what's it going to be like? All of these just unknown questions, surreal questions. You feel like it's like your first day of school, but it's on steroids. Many of you have watched too many movies. You're watching some of the wrong channels where it really puts a lot of fear into you. So this channel, this video specifically is really geared towards, I would say, white collar individuals, first time nonviolent offenders, probably where there was nobody got hurt in this case. There could be victims, could be financial loss. So you do need to identify your victims. But for the most of you, the people that are watching this video, you're probably either going to be going to a low security or a camp. Maybe some of you might be hitting a medium, which we can talk about that too if you want to. But really, the real prison sentence for a lot of you is what you're dealing with right now. This whole pretrial phase for me was far worse than prison itself. If I'd known how, and I don't want to say prison was great, but for me, prison was an overwhelmingly positive experience. Many of you heard me say that many times because there really is a lot more to do in prison than you would imagine. So we'll talk about that. Your first day, let's talk about your first day in prison for a second. You know, your first day prison, most of you are going to be self-surrendering. Not many of you are detained right now. And if you are detained, if you're a family member watching this for somebody that might be going to federal prison, there's great resources in here for you as well. I would definitely suggest getting yourself a consultation. But for the first day, a lot of you are going to self-surrender to whatever prison you're going to go to. You're probably going to go to a camp. You're going to go to a low, and there is an intake process. It's really kind of like, kind of self-surrendering. It's not that much different than if any of you've had like a military experience. You are going to, you're going to do the whole drop and cough. They're going to check you to make sure you're not bringing any contraband. And that's for everybody. I would say it's not as invasive as you imagine. Most of the COs do not enjoy doing searches, and it's not like a cavity search. They're not going to be touching you. For the most part, you're going to take off your clothes. You're going to put your clothes into a bag. If you did wear your street clothes into prison, which most of you are, you can either mail them home, your family can take them with them, or they're going to get thrown away. They're not going to hang on to your clothes. So I wouldn't wear anything nice that you plan on keeping, because the BOP is not going to hang on to it. 30 days before you're released from prison, your family will be able to send in kind of what you're going to be wearing to go out of there. So whatever you're going to wear into prison, I suggest just wearing something you don't care about that you can toss. You're not going to be able to keep anything. There are some camps that certain shoes you might be able to bring in, and we can talk about that on a case-by-case basis. But for the most of you, kind of plan on not having you're not going to be able to keep any of the clothes that you're bringing. So be prepared to throw it away. They're going to dress you out. You're going to be put into your khakis or whatever color prison uniform they have, gray, blue. They're going to dress you out. You're going to go through the whole orientation process where you're going to sit with medical. They're going to evaluate you, your medical. They're going to evaluate your mental health. They're going to determine if you have any issues, and then they're going to send you directly out to like general population, out to your housing unit. And in your housing unit, this is where you're going to be assigned to bunk. You're going to find out who your bunkie is. You're going to get to kind of get a lay of the land, what the prison looks like. Most of you that are going to a camp or a low, it's going to either be like open dormitory style, where it's just a big giant room with a bunch of bunk beds, or it's going to be like concrete cubicles, which I prefer, to be honest. The concrete cubicles does give you a little bit more privacy. You are going to be sharing your common space with your fellow man or your fellow woman. So you're not going to have like private rooms. Camps and lows, they're not cells. So it's not like you're going to have a cell where the door is going to get locked. It's going to be open. The community is going to be open. The computers are going to be accessible. The phones are going to be accessible. Bathrooms are shared. You're going to share the showers. You're going to share the urinals. You're going to share the sinks. You're going to share the TV rooms. And, a lot of this is where people start to get freaked out. They're like, oh my God, I'm going to have to take, shower with other naked men or naked women. And that's not the case either. Most of these housing units, they have anywhere from, we'll call it 3 to 5 showers, several urinals, several toilets, and several sinks. The showers are going to be separated for the most part by concrete walls. So you have concrete, shower, and then you have a curtain that closes. So you do have privacy. You do have hot water. They do provide you with soap and water. You're probably not going to want to use the federal soap. You're probably going to want to use your commissary to purchase different items. Commissary in federal prison is pretty decent. It's not great, but you do have things that you can purchase on there. I would say commissary in federal prison is pretty comparable to what you would see like at a 7-Eleven or like a Walmart. Pretty much anything you can imagine getting there, you can probably get on commissary. If you've done any county jail time, and really commissary there was just comprised of like ramen noodles, some candy bars, basic hygiene. Federal prison is designed for longer stays. So you got to remember, like, your county experience, people aren't really going to be there for a long time. That's usually a holdover. You're waiting for your case to get finalized, to get a final disposition, whether you're going to be sentenced, whether you're going to go home. So prison is designed for longer term stay. You've got people doing 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years life in prison. For most of you that are going to go to a prison camp, you can't be at a camp if you have more than 10 years remaining on your sentence minus your good time. So you can be at a camp if you have more than 10 years, but you got to work your way down. So if you're sentenced to more than 10 years, you would start at a low or a medium. And as you work your way down the system and you maintain good conduct, stay out of trouble, keep your pattern score low. Your pattern score has a lot to do with like First Step Act, getting earned time credits, additional time off, things like that. But as long as you're maintaining, doing what you're supposed to do, most of you are probably going to start at a camp, or you'll move to a camp relatively quickly. Camps are work camps. If you're at a camp, you're going to get a job. You're going to be working in the chow hall. You might be working in the library. A lot of people are going to be doing lawn maintenance type jobs, lawn maintenance services, cutting grass, weed whacking, things like that. A lot of the prison camps, because your custody is so low and you're not really a risk to society, so you can be out and about with general public, they utilize that service to have you do a lot of the manual labor. So there is a lot of manual labor in prison. However, based on your skill set, whatever you do, if you have medical issues, that will come into play with what type of job you're going to get. Initially, you may get a job that's not super desirable, but chances are you're going to make friends immediately. I know that's hard to believe that I'm going to be friends with somebody in prison, but I've never met anybody that went to prison that did not have a good vibe with other inmates. You're going to have friends, your bunkies. There's a lot of people that are there just like you that made some poor choices. The majority of people that are in federal prison, at least lows and camps, they're not bad people. They're just people that made some poor choices, and now they're sitting in an undesirable situation, just like you are right now. And these are people that you'll probably end up becoming friends with, that you'll want to spend your time with, because it's going to help with what you're going to be doing with your day to day, making time pass, a lot of these things. So whatever kind of job you're going to initially get, don't freak out about it too much, because chances are you'll get the job that you're looking for pretty quick once you start making some friends. And you could have a job as a law clerk. You could be doing finances. You could be in the education center. There's a lot of jobs. You can go online and look at the jobs that are available in the BOP. If you're at a low security, jobs are not as necessary, because low security usually have a lot more inmates than jobs, where a camp doesn't have a large population of people. So there's a lot of the inmate ratio to jobs is a little bit different. So everybody's going to have a job in a camp where you might be working 5, 6, 7 hours a day. Some of you might want to work 5, 6, 7 hours a day just to kill time. Where at a low security, because there's so much to do, so much programming, so much activity, sports, recreation, classes, the days do go by really, really quick. Chow in the federal prison, chow hall food, it's not the best. It's not the worst. You do get your 3 meals a day. A lot of you are going to have money on commissary, where you can offset what you're not getting in the off chow hall, or maybe there's food that you don't like and you'd rather sit in your dorm and make pizzas and burritos and tuna fish and peanut butter, a lot of mackerel in there, a lot of protein you can purchase. There's lots of snacks as well. But you'll see people are pretty equipped on how to do prison cooking. So you'll see a lot of people making pizzas and burritos and, chicken fried rice. So all kinds of different things that you'll see taking place in there. Count time is really big. So when you first get there, you really want to pay attention to count time. You've got some mandatory count times in the morning, some mandatory count times in the afternoon. You've got mandatory count times at night. And most of these are going to be standing counts, so you don't want to fall asleep. And if they say, hey, count time, and they walk by and your bunkie is not cool enough to wake you up and you're sitting there sleeping when they come by to count you, you can get trouble for that. That can be an actual shot. You could get like a series 300 shot, where that could cause you problems. That could mess up things like good time. It could mess up things like RDAP. A lot of you are looking to program your ass off so you can get in and out of prison as soon as possible. And count time is a big one. Following the prison rules is huge. There's prison rules that people follow religiously, and then there's other rules that aren't really that enforced. Now, if you're in RDAP, I would say all the prison rules are highly enforced. And when I say rules that are not enforced, like you'll see people bringing salt and pepper to the chow hall, or maybe it's egg day, where you get a bunch of hard-boiled eggs in the morning and somebody doesn't eat them, so you end up getting 4 or 5 extra hard-boiled eggs, and you're like, I'm going to bring them back and eat them for a snack later, or I'm going to make some egg salad. People put eggs in their socks and they try to sneak out of the chow hall, and you've got usually a CO at the door who's watching people walk out, and they're looking for people that are trying to smuggle out food. A lot of guys are smuggling out like whole chickens and sugar. These are all items that can definitely get you in trouble. And if you're in RDAP and you get caught smuggling out food, these could be things that take away your entire year. If you're getting a year off for RDAP, these could be, infractions that really wouldn't be that big of a deal for somebody that's not in RDAP, but for you, somebody that's in RDAP, it is a big deal. And inmates that are not in RDAP love to see other people lose their time. It's just like anything else in the real world. People are jealous, they're envious. So if you're one of the lucky ones that qualified for RDAP, and if you're wondering how you can qualify for RDAP, again, there's a link in the description of this video for free consultation. Qualifying for RDAP is not rocket science, but there is imperative information that you need to provide during the pre-sentence report, which takes place right after your plea agreement. So you want to make sure that you're really taking your pretrial steps properly before you get to prison. A lot of you are going to be sitting in prison, and there's going to be technicalities that are going to hold you up for getting into programs, whether it be First Step Act, RDAP, extra halfway house time. There's going to be things that you could avoid by taking the steps now. So definitely, if you do nothing else from this video, book a free consultation. It's 15 minutes. That could be the make or break on you getting time off your sentence or not. Now, getting into prison, obviously, you're going to want to do as much as you can to get time off. And staying out of trouble is one of the big ones. You know, a lot of people running a business, a lot of you are business owners, you're entrepreneurs, and you think, oh, I'll run my business from inside. I'll do it through phone calls and I'll do it through email. Doesn't work that way. You cannot make business decisions from inside prison. There's other prison consultants that talk about this, running your business. You know, I get it. There are some of you that are going to have no choice. You're going to have to try to break the rules or get around it. Maybe you're going to have visitations come. Visitations is probably the safest way if you do need to make business decisions, because visitations, you know, they're monitoring what you're doing, but they're not listening to your conversations. Where phone calls are all recorded, emails are recorded in and out. Letters, they're not so much, people don't read the letter so much going out, but the incoming letters, they are open because they're definitely going to be checked for contraband. So every letter coming into you from a family member or a friend will be subject for reviewing it, and they could read it. So if you do have information in there that could get you in trouble, like talking about making business decisions, running your business, that could definitely cause you problems. Getting caught running a business in prison, and it sounds crazy, and many of you are wondering, like, why can't you do this? I think it has a lot to do with what are you really talking about during these business decisions. You know, you could be talking about, hey, you know, buy 30 shares of this, or go buy, you know, 300 PCs for the office. And as far as the prison's concerned, 300 PCs could be 300 kilos of cocaine. I got in trouble. I had a call center before I went to prison, and we were actually in the process of selling off a big portion of it. We were selling off a lot of the equipment, cubicles, things like that. And I got called into the lieutenant's office because we talked business over the phone and over email. And I did not know you were not allowed to do it at this point. It probably is in the handbook, but to my own disadvantage, I didn't read the handbook. So you probably should read whatever handbook you're going to get for the prison, but I didn't read the handbook. So I got called into the lieutenant's office, and they gave me a pretty good stern warning and told me if it happens again, I'd be subject to losing good time, commissary, phone privileges, and visitation. Those are all huge things. I was not in RDAP yet at this point, so that could have taken away my RDAP. Not signing up for count time, you can mess up your RDAP. So RDAP is a whole extra level of stress in prison. You're getting time off, so it's definitely worth it. But every little mistake could be catastrophic if you were to get in trouble. And sometimes you can be targeted. You've got good staff members and you have bad staff members, just like any career. So if you get on someone's shit list, it could definitely, you know, RDAP is a 500-hour cognitive behavior therapy program, and it takes 10 months to get through the program. So you're in a special housing unit in the prison for 10 months. Everybody living in that housing unit is in the program. You guys are expected to hold each other accountable. You're expected to tell on each other. If you see somebody doing something they're not supposed to be doing, you're supposed to correct them. So it is policing each other big time. And during the morning meetings, people will tell on you. You know, if you're stealing chicken out of the chow hall, or if they saw you get in trouble, you're running on the common ground, going in between, going from maybe the library to the rec yard, or from the rec yard to wherever, you're not supposed to run. Now, if you're out on the rec yard, you can run, but when you're just on the compound itself, you can have a fast, brisk walk, but you can't run. So you could get caught running, and a CO could have an interaction with you and say, hey, come here, Wise. And if another RDAP inmate sees you talking to that CO, and they bring it up the next morning that you got in trouble for running, that's a whole thing right there. Then you got to take accountability. You got to understand whatever action you were struggling with. It's a whole thing. So advice for first going into prison: don't go in there and asking people a bunch of questions. You know, try to I'm not going to say don't talk to other people, because you definitely want to engage. You're a human being, but keep your head down a little bit. A lot of people are overzealous, and they think that they're going to go in there and they've got this master plan. Every fucking plan sounds great until you get punched in the face, in the famous words of Mike Tyson. So keeping a generalized plan, your plan really should be to go in, Learn the lay of the land, figure out what's going on, who's who, what's expected of you, and kind of start off slow doing the bare minimum. Once you raise that bar too high, as you're the guy that's always doing stuff and excelling in this and excelling in that, now you're expected to maintain that. And the minute you fall back a little bit, the minute you have a bad day, or the minute you don't show up for something, that could put a target on you from other staff members. I've seen a lot of guys play that shiny star role where they've got an answer for everybody. They want to help everybody, and they're not working on their own treatment properly. And then it backfires. Maybe you're trying to help somebody and somebody doesn't want the help, and you're trying to be a problem solver and somebody doesn't really want that help. And it can turn against you to where now you become like this master manipulator. Prison definitely has its ups and downs. And this video is not to scare you, but this video is to give you a realistic expectation that you're going to prison. You're not going to playtime. You're not going to a scary prison. Your life's not going to be in danger for the most part. Medical's not the greatest. You can have a lot of frustrating things happen to you in prison. Visitations can be a little bit of a frustrating process. Your family maybe is traveling, hundreds of miles or several hours away, and they get there the day of visitation. All of a sudden, compound is closed, visitation's temporarily canceled, and your family spent money on an airline ticket. They spent money on a hotel. They've got your kids there. You're all excited to see them, and boom, visitation's over. There's nothing you can do about it. It happens all the time. You have to really kind of be prepared for the unexpected. Being prepared for the unexpected is probably what will help you get through this, and realizing that there's things that are going to be completely outside of your control. Getting up in the morning, you're going to go eat chow, you're going to go eat your breakfast, you're going to probably, if you're an RDAP, you're going to start your morning treatment. If you have a job, you're going to go to work. There's plenty of time to do activities. There's plenty of time to communicate with your family. Phones, a lot of people have questions about how the phone systems work, and you can get in trouble pretty easy with phones as well. You get 300 minutes per month during regular season. Regular season is January through October, is 300 minutes per month. November, December, I believe it's either 400 or 500 minutes per month. I forgot, because COVID has changed things. But you're gonna have to pay for your minutes. You get 300 minutes per month, and that can go real fast. So you really want to maintain and manage that. The best way to do it is make a phone call every other day. Initially, when everybody gets to prison, the first couple of days, first couple of weeks, that's the hardest time. You're calling everybody and anybody, and you can burn through your 300 minutes in a week and a half. And now you can't use the phone for another 2 or 3 weeks until your minutes reset. And this is where people get in trouble, because they're like, oh, well, Joe says I can use his phone. Well, these phones, you have a PIN number, a pack number that's designed, that's created directly for you. You have to use it when you get on the phone. You got to put in your special number. Those phone calls are recorded. So if Joe is hurting for money and Joe's like, hey, Dan, you can use my phone. So Joe adds like your girlfriend or whoever to his phone system. He calls it, your person gets on the phone. He hands the phone to you. And if the prison detects a different voice, which it happens all the time, that's subject to a shot, because now you're using somebody else's phone, which is not allowed. You could be conducting, it could be for gambling purposes. You could owe somebody money. And again, somebody letting you use their minutes, they're usually not doing it out of the kindness of their heart. They're doing it because you're giving them something, or you owe them a debt, or a commissary is being traded. These are the type of things that can lead to, fights. They can lead to problems. Gambling is huge in prison, from sports gambling, cards, in prison sports, soccer, football, high jumps, you name it, people are betting on something in prison, and getting caught betting and things like that creates problems, because now, nobody likes to owe anybody money. And in the real world, if you're a degenerate gambler in the real world, you can go lock yourself in your room and hide. In prison, if you're a degenerate gambler and you start getting yourself into debt, your prison credit's going to get fucked up real fast, to where you can't outrun these people. They're there. Now you're going to have to go tell on somebody. You're going to have to check yourself into the shoe. You're just leading yourself to get into more and more problems. So knowing these things, not using somebody else's phone, is huge. You can purchase things, electronics on Commissary. You can purchase like a radio. You can purchase an MP3 player. Now they even have, so you can like watch movies on there. You can download movies. You can do FaceTime with your family. It all comes with a hefty price. I would tell you that if you do not have a long sentence, I would get an AM/FM radio and just rock out with that. Don't worry about downloading your favorite playlist, your favorite music. It's all PC music anyway. So whatever your favorite music is, you're going to be downloading like the radio version. There's no swearing. Movies are pretty expensive. Commissary can add up real fast. You definitely, when you get there, you're going to have a limit to what you can spend. And things that go towards your limit are, your shoes, sweatpants. The only things that don't go towards your monthly limit are like hygiene products, stamps, things like that. But everything else that you can purchase on Commissary, food, clothes, stuff that's for luxury, that goes against what your monthly spend is. So you could spend your whole, whatever it is, $300+ a month. You could spend that pretty quick. Some prisons have a limit how much you can spend per week. It might be like $100, $125. But for the most part, you want to make sure you have your basic stuff to kind of keep your sanity. Maybe some of your go-to snacks, some of your comfort foods, your coffee. You got to have coffee. If you don't have coffee in prison, there's something wrong with you. Keefy coffee. Rock it on, man. I wish I had some Keefy coffee right now. Cheers. But coffee, you got to have coffee in prison. That goes hands down. And if you're not drinking coffee in prison, God bless you. A lot of you are probably chain smoking cigarettes right now, or you got a electronic vape cigarette, electronic cigarette stuck to your hand like your RoboCop. You're not going to have nicotine in there. I saw some guys doing some crazy shit to get cigarettes because there was no cigarettes at a low. It was almost impossible to even smuggle them in because you're behind a fence. And a lot of the correctional officers, a lot of the COs out in middle Florida, out by Ocala, a lot of these good old boys, they're doing the chewing tobacco. So they, get the goop out of their mouth. They throw it in the grass. And we had this kid, I don't know his name. Everybody just called him Jit. He was young, 18, 19-year-old kid, would go follow the COs around and scoop up the spit chewing tobacco, bring it, dry it out on a piece of paper, microwave it to get it kind of like back to a dry powdery form, and they'd roll cigarettes, and they would sell cigarettes like that. So if you're addicted to nicotine, you're going to find yourself smoking somebody's chewing tobacco rolled up into a cigarette. So certain things you want to really start prepping now for before you go to prison is work on smoking less. I know that's easier said than done because right now it's probably the most stressful time of your life as you're getting ready to go to prison. But if you're watching these videos, you're watching them for a reason, probably because you or somebody you know is getting ready to go to federal prison. And these are some things that can really help you make or break what you're going to be looking at. Man, lots of commercials over here today. Other things, going in medication, a lot of you are on medication. Maybe you're detoxing off of some kind of a narcotic and you're on things like Suboxone or whatnot, or you're on your Schedule 2s. And we get a lot of questions. A lot of our consulting calls have a lot to do with the drugs you're going to be able to get in prison. You don't see a lot of inmates getting Suboxone. You don't see a lot of inmates getting Schedule 2. If it's heart medication, things like that, blood pressure medication, that's pretty easily given. But if you're on some kind of like Suboxone or you're detoxing off of something and you're on high doses of it, you should. And I'm not a doctor, so don't take any medical advice from me. I'm not an attorney, so don't take any legal advice from me. But if you're getting ready to go to prison, I would have a conversation with your doctor about what you can do to prepare yourself if the prison isn't going to give you your medication. In many cases, even when the prison will give you your medication, even when it's on an approved list, I've seen guys go into prison and take 3 or 4 weeks to get their medication. We're talking like basic medication that someone needs, blood pressure medication, stuff for diabetes. The BOP is horrible on giving out the proper medications. County jail is just as bad. You hear about people just going crazy and they're not getting their meds. And it can be a real struggle. So the more you prepare now and thinking about, what do you need to do to shorten your, to not just shorten your sentence, but with whatever time you're going to have in prison. Let's just turn this off because this thing's bugging me now. Let's play a video. There we go. What you're going to do with your time in prison, how you're going to spend your time, in addition to trying to shorten your sentence, how your day-to-day is going to be. You got to look at it like this. It's almost better to spend a little bit more time in prison if your time is easier versus spending a shorter time, but every day is like overwhelming. All you're doing is staring at the clock. Time's ticking by super slow. If you prepare properly, time goes by really fast in prison. My 42 months, like I said, I sliced that down to 13 months, and those 13 months just flew by like it was a bat of the eye. It didn't feel like it at the time, but I was very busy in prison. My day-to-day routine was I'd get up in the morning, I'd go to chow, I'd do RDAP from 7 to 11. You'd go to lunch, come out of lunch, you'd go to the rec yard for a few hours, work out, take some classes. go eat dinner by 4:30, 5 o'clock, come back to go back out on the rec yard, exercise, take some more classes. You walk the compound, you're going to find friends. You're going to spend a lot of time walking. This is definitely a great opportunity to get your mind right, lose weight, get your mental health under control, your physical health, because you don't really have anything else to do. You're not going to have a cell phone. You're not going to have a computer. This is going back old school. It's archaic in a way, but it's also a way to get back in touch with your humanity and really clear your mind. A lot of you are maybe starting to pick up meditation habits right now. That's going to be great for prison. The books that you read, the stuff that you put into your head, Tony Robbins, whether it be the Bible, anything positive, start doing it now, because what you do with your day-to-day right now is really going to play a role on how your day-to-day goes in prison. Those of you with kids at home thinking about how is this going to work for my kids, my family's going to fall apart. You might think that, but human beings are resilient. We find a way to get through some of the toughest tasks. And I'll tell you that the way you communicate with your kids now is obviously going to be different in prison, but you will adapt to a new routine. You're going to talk to your son and your daughter on Monday, Wednesday. A lot of you that have these big families that are like, I got to talk to my whole family. Pick one or two people that you're going to talk to the majority of the time, because those 300 minutes, they don't go very far. So you really want to manage that time for who's going to be the most important to talk to. Because if you've got kids, you're not really going to care too much about talking to your best friend, or your business partner. Save that stuff for letters, save that stuff for emails, save that for maybe once in a blue moon when you got to deal with it. But for the most part, every other day, if you do one phone call every other day, you can manage those. So you have those minutes throughout the entire month. During COVID, they were giving people kind of unlimited 500 minutes. They weren't even charging you for it. So all this stuff now, this is all stuff that's going to come off of the cost of your commissary. It's going to come out of your bank, or however that the money that people are going to put on your books. If you owe money, if you owe restitution, don't put too much money on your books, because they can dip in there and take it. Even if they say they're only supposed to take 10%, it can end up being more than that. Prison itself is not that bad, guys. It's not like what you see on TV. Getting through what you're going through right now, that is the hard part. And programming, trying to find out what you can do to shorten your time. That's why a lot of you are probably searching the internet and searching YouTube, and you're coming across, a lot of same information, maybe conflicting information. But if you're out on pretrial right now and you haven't pled guilty, or you just pled guilty, but you haven't been sentenced yet, what your personal narrative, your character reference letters, prepping for the pre-sentence interview, these are huge, massive steps and situations that if you properly plan for this, you really can improve yourself to receive the best possible outcome and serve the least amount of time, and position yourself for the best possible location. The judge cannot sentence you to RDAP. The judge cannot sentence you to a specific prison. We get those calls every day too, that, the judge sentenced me to prison, or the judge told me I'm going to this place. They have no say in that. You've got the jurisdiction of the court system. You've got the jurisdiction of the BOP. The court's job is to sentence you to amount of time. They're to impose fines. They're to impose things like supervised release after prison. But from there, the reason why you don't go to prison right away, many of you are given like a self-surrender time. So you get sentenced today and you're given 2 weeks, 6 weeks, 2 months, 3 months to self-surrender. A lot of that is because after sentencing, your paperwork will get sent out to Grand Prairie, Texas, where they go through your PSR. They're going to go through your custody levels, programs you qualify for. If you're a gang member, it's going to take that into consideration. Your age is going to play a factor. And then Grand Prairie, Texas, where BOP is or that's where the central office is housed at, they're going to determine where you're going to be designated to. And a lot of that's going to be based on what's in your pre-sentence report. So if you're trying to get into RDAP, but you did not disclose detailed level of substance abuse, timelines, frequencies, how much you were using, things like that during the pre-sentence report, you may not qualify for RDAP. So then there's other steps that you got to take to offset the information that's not in your pre-sentence report. And you could get sentenced to a prison. You could get sent to a prison that doesn't have RDAP. So if you think you qualify for RDAP and you find out you're going to a prison that doesn't have the program, that could be a tall tale sign that you don't qualify for RDAP. First Step Act, a lot of you are going to be interested in the First Step Act. If you're not familiar with that, go online and Google it, start doing some research. But the First Step Act, if you qualify for it, it can knock up to 15 days off your sentence per month. So for every 30 days of programming under FSA approved accredited classes and courses, you could reduce your sentence by 15 days per month, up to another year off of your sentence. So with all of the stuff going on, If you really create the perfect storm and you prepare properly, and depending on what your sentence is, you could receive your regular good time of 15%. You could receive a year for RDAP. You could receive a year for FSA credits. You could get anywhere from 6 months to a year of halfway house. We're talking 3-4 years knocked off of potential sentence. If you've got a 2 or 3 year sentence, you could look at 10, 13 months and be out of prison. But that doesn't happen by accident. That happens from your release from prison. Preparing for your release from prison really should start now. The release plan is huge. A lot of people don't put enough credit into the release plan. The release plan is going to be used to determine like where you're going to live, what you plan on doing for work. And sometimes that can work against you, because remember, halfway house is really the whole purpose of halfway house is to give people a chance when they get out to get back on their feet. Because if you just throw somebody from prison back to the street, maybe they don't have family, they don't have a family unit, they don't have a financial, they don't have any stability, no upline, nobody they can count on, they don't have a job right away, nowhere to live. And that extra level of stress could put them right back into a life of crime. So you want to kind of pay attention to that. For those of you who do have everything figured out and you do have a family waiting for you, you do have a job or a business you're going back to, you really want to strategically plan how you're going to try to maximize your halfway house time. And there are ways to do that. But it's not a one size fits all. Again, that's why there's a link in the description of this video to book a free consultation. Can't help everybody. Not everybody's always going to be happy. You deal with that in any business. People hear what they want to hear, and you try to put people through the best scenario possible. And what works for one might not work for another. You've got X factors out there. You got the BOP that can try to take things away from you. You've got courts. You've got availability needs to be available in the halfway house. It's real easy to lose time. Getting bad news while you're in prison can be one of those things that really kind of screws you up. But getting released from prison, most of you are going to go to a federal halfway house first. A lot of you think you're going to go straight to home confinement, but usually you're going to start at a halfway house, even if for a couple of weeks. The amount of home confinement you can do is 10% of your sentence. So if you're sentenced to 60 months and you're given a year of halfway house, you can't do that whole time on home confinement. You can only do 6 months of it. So if you got let's say a 60-month sentence and you're given a year of halfway house, you do 6 months in the halfway house and 6 months on home confinement. So it's 10% up to 6 months of home confinement. And home confinement is no walk in the park. You are confined to your home. You're governed by the halfway house. You're under the jurisdiction of the halfway house. And your probation doesn't start until you finish all of your obligations to the BOP. So your time in prison, your halfway house, and your home confinement. Once you finish all those components, then you start your level of supervised release, whether it's 12 months, 24 months, 36 months. And depending on your situation, if you owe restitution or you don't owe restitution, if you do owe restitution, it's hard to get any of your supervised release or your probation cut early. If you do not owe restitution, if you're just, you have to do 24 months or 36 months, but you don't owe anything, that can typically be cut in half or even less. You really want to complete at least 1 year, and then you can file for early termination of supervised release. And for many of you, it's not that big of a deal because maybe you're doing just fine on probation. But while you're on probation and supervised release, the littlest thing can cause problems for you. Maybe you're trying to get a new job. It's in a different district. It's in another state. Maybe your family's moved around and you want to go visit them. While you're on supervised release, you need permission for everything to go out of the state, to drive certain places, getting in trouble, getting a speeding ticket. God forbid you get a DUI. These things can have they can have a huge negative impact if you're still on supervised release. So the sooner you can get off of everything, I'm not going to say this is when you can go start being a screw up, but this is when you're a technicality isn't going to throw you back, months or years. I've seen people at the very tail end get very complacent. Before you know it, they get wrapped up in something stupid and they're right back up in the system again. A lot of them are watching this channel right now that have gone through this a couple of times. So yeah, that's what I got for you guys today. My biggest advice is this is not the end of the world for you. Prison is not going to define you unless you let it. For many of you, this is a blessing in disguise. You might not see it today. Getting a job as a convicted felon is not as hard as you think. There's lots of entrepreneurship available. There's lots of sales jobs available. There's lots of professional, high-level industry jobs that are available. There's lots of employers that are sympathetic to people that have gone through the system, that believe they do deserve a second chance. You just got to have the right mindset and not have this negative Nancy thought process that I'm not going to find a job. I'm not going to be dateable. That awfulizing attitude will cause you tons of sleepless nights, anxiety, suicidal thoughts. So if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. If there's anything that we can do to help you out to make your journey a little smoother, maybe help you shorten some time off your sentence, put you in front of the judge in the best possible light to receive the best possible sentence, there's a link in the description for a free consultation. All right, guys, I'm Dan Wise, Federal Prison Time Consulting, people helping people, communities method, one day at a time. And fuck the Super Bowl this year. Nobody cares. All right, guys, peace. I'm out of here.